In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a Choropleth map using Google Sheets. If you're not familiar with the Choropleth map, it looks like this. Here's an example of the United States. Different geographic areas are shaded with different colors to communicate some data for that geographic area. So we'll take a look at how to do that in Google Sheets. For this demonstration, I'm going to use some methane emission data, which is organized by country. All right, so I downloaded this data from the European Commission. The data service is called EDGAR, and like I said, it's methane emission data. They have a variety of data out here, but we focused in on the methane or CH4 emissions. So back in Google Sheets, I've pulled that data into my sheet, and I can see it's got a whole bunch of different columns and rows. This is a fairly large data set. Across the top for the different columns, we've got things like country information. We've got a key category here. It looks like the methane emissions can come from different sources. Some are bio and some are fossil. And then running out from there, we have lots of different years. So it goes from 1970, and if I scroll all the way to the right, the last year available is 2018. So a number of years of data. So across these countries, for these different sources of methane, we've got methane emission amounts per year. So for my Choropleth, my goal is to create a Choropleth where the shading for each geographic region, in this case, is going to be a country representing its methane emission level. And for this demo, I'm going to focus in on the year 1970. And like I said, there's two different sources of methane emission, both fossil and bio. So I'm going to focus in on the fossil emissions from fossil. All right, so I want to filter down this spreadsheet. This sheet already has filtering enabled, and you can tell that by these header this header row having these little down arrows on them. That means I can filter all my rows based on a different column value. And so I'm going to go in here to this filter, and I'm going to uncheck bio and leave fossil checked, and when I hit OK, that's going to then filter this down. So all of these are the methane emission for a given country from a fossil source. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is produce my Choropleth now for all of these countries. So to do that, Choropleth needs two different things. It needs something that defines what the geographic region is, and it needs some numeric value. Like I said, I'm going to focus in on 1970 methane emissions. And the Choropleth likes two-letter country codes. That's how it can then figure out which geographic area that numeric value maps to. So for me, I'm going to first select column C by clicking the C header here. And you can see that whole column is selected. I'm going to hold my control button on my keyboard, and I'm going to select the G or 1970 methane emission column. I've got those two selected now, and now I'm ready to insert a new chart, my Choropleth chart. So I'm going to go to Insert. I'm going to click Chart, and I've got a new chart here. Okay, so we can see this looks like some kind of column chart. Over here in my chart editor, I can see column is selected. That's not what I want. I want a Choropleth. So I'm going to click that chart type drop down. I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to look under Maps, and there's two different chart types under Maps. This one labeled GeoChart is how Google refers to the Choropleth. So I'm going to click that. All right, this is looking a lot better now. I can see my map is color-coded for different countries. I can see them ranging from green, some middle reds, and some bright reds. All right, so I'm going to now move this to its own sheet so it can be big and I can focus on the visualization. Now, what I want to do, since this methane emission value is a continuous value running from a very small number to a much higher number, is that's appropriate for a more a color ramp that is all within one color range. So what I'm going to do is go customize this chart. I'm going to go under Geo, and what I can do is define my color values. So when I'm at the minimum value, or in this case close to 0 methane emission, I might want that to be, say, like a white, or maybe I'll go with a real light gray. When I'm in the mid-range of these values, maybe I want a more of a medium red. And then as I move towards the maximum methane emission, that's kind of, that signals to me something that's kind of like a bad thing, right? Too much methane being emitted from a country. I want that to be a nice bright red, so those pop, and I can see where those high values. So you can now see I'm going from this, this gray through a medium red out to a bright red, and you can see how that is now, that color ramp shows that progression from those low values to those high values, and then the countries light up that have the higher methane emissions. And then remember, this is from 1 year, right? So back in our data, we focused in on countries with methane emissions from a fossil source in the year 1970. And so always remember what your chart represents. What is the exact underlying data that goes with this? Unfortunately, in Google Sheets, you cannot add a chart title to the Choropleth. It just doesn't support that, unfortunately. It seems like they're lacking that fundamental chart element, but it is a nice looking visualization that you can create right here in Google Sheets. And so that's how it works.